Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are immersing ourselves in, well, a phenomenon, really. It sits not just at the crossroads of music and politics, but right in the middle of language,
Hmm.
major legal battles, and, yeah, global controversy.
We're talking about Kneecap.
Exactly. The hip-hop trio from Belfast, Northern Ireland.
And our mission today, I think, is to get past the shock headlines,
Yeah.
to really unpack what's going on with this group's, well, explosive path.
Yeah.
Because the source material we've looked at, it paints this picture of a band that has quite deliberately weaponized their identity, their language, turned themselves into this kind of institutional lightning rod.
Right.
They mix this really aggressive political defiance, these efforts to bring the Irish language back into the mainstream, and somehow achieve huge international success. We're talking Academy Award shortlisting.
Incredible.
While at the same time, facing outright bans from governments, counterterrorism police looking into them, it's wild.
Yeah, it really is a dizzying story, and it definitely needs some context. So just the basics for anyone who might not be familiar. Kneecap is Mochara, Mowgli Bop, and DJ Provai. They've been around since about 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and their sound, it's this fierce, sometimes kind of chaotic blend. You've got hardcore hip-hop, political rap, even high-energy EDM thrown in there.
And the themes they hit on are, well, they're rooted deep in their own reality, aren't they? It's about being young and working class in Belfast today. There's a strong element of Irish republicanism, and maybe most importantly, this fight for Irish language rights.
Yeah.
They're much more than just a band. They're like a political statement just delivered really, really loudly.
And that contradiction is the hook, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant one. They are arguably one of the most controversial acts out there right now. They've faced radio bans back home,
Right from the start.
blocks on UK government funding, actual terrorism charges, which is just astounding, bans from entering countries like Hungary, Canada. And yet they're also cultural darlings in some circles. Their own biographical movie becomes Ireland's official pick for the Oscars.
It's this incredible tension. Let's try and unpack some of that chaos.
Okay, let's dig into this brand first.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, before you even hear a single beat, the provocation starts. It starts with the name, Kneecap.
Yeah.
And this is where I think you get that first big aha
Mm-hmm.
moment. The name itself, it seems, designed to work on two levels, right? It's both a political threat and this sort of defiant shrug.
That dual meaning is, I think, the genius of their branding, really. On one side, yeah, it references one of the absolute most horrific symbols from the Troubles in Northern Ireland, kneecapping.
Horrific.
This violent extra-legal punishment, often, a gunshot straight to the knees, used historically by paramilitary groups, usually Republican ones, against people they labeled criminals.
Which often meant drug dealers, informants.
Exactly. People seen as harming the community or collaborating. So the name immediately plants them in this history of, well, revolutionary violence, vigilante justice. It's heavy.
It's such a loaded term.
Yeah.
But then there's the linguistic twist.
Right. And this is crucial. When you hear it spoken, particularly with a Belfast accent, kneecap sounds almost exactly like the Irish phrase ní cheapim.
Which means?
I don't think so. So you have this horrifying symbol of past violence wrapped up in this very contemporary, almost casual dismissal. Kneecap or nay, I don't think so. It's like they're reclaiming this incredibly powerful, loaded term and flipping it, repurposing it for modern youth rebellion.
And Mowgli Bap, one of the rappers, he actually pointed out the kind of supreme irony in choosing that name, didn't he?
He did. He highlighted how they sing quite openly, quite often, about taking drugs, the very kinds of activities and substances that back in the day during the Troubles would have been precisely the sort of criminality that Republican paramilitaries might have punished violently.
With a kneecapping.
Exactly. They are literally rapping about the things that could have earned them the punishment that is their own band name. It tells you so much about their relationship with that revolutionary history. It's satirical, it's complex, it's deeply irreverent. They're using the past to comment on, maybe even critique, the present.
That irony, it feels like it's baked into the DNA of the group. You see it everywhere, right down to their visuals, their imagery.
Oh, absolutely. Their logo itself is based on the balaclavas that paramilitaries wore.
And they don't shy away from that on stage either. DJ Provai especially, he often wears a balaclava, but it's decorated with the Irish tricolor flag.
Yeah, it's a very, very intentional visual code. Early press, like in The Guardian, noted how their work was explicitly trying to merge this Gaelic identity, the whole Irish language revival movement, with what got termed hood culture.
And hoods in Northern Ireland, that specifically refers to young, often working-class kids involved in petty crime, maybe drug dealing.
Yeah, exactly that kind of context. So they're drawing this direct line between historical armed revolutionary movements and the sort of anti-establishment behavior you see from young people today.
The stage names, too, I find them fascinating because they seem to deliberately escalate the political temperature. Cearta is straightforward enough.
My friend, simple.
Mowgli Bap is almost like an inside joke, isn't it? Based on Mowgli from the Jungle Book.
Yeah, apparently because he looked like him as a kid. It's kind of lighthearted.
But then you get DJ Provai, and that's, well, it's not subtle at all.
No, not even slightly. It's a direct, completely unambiguous phonetic nod to the Provisional IRA, the Provos.
So you put that trio together on stage, the friend, the sort of cultural pun, and then the explicit Provisional IRA reference.
And right there, you've established this whole spectrum. You've got humor, contemporary anti-establishment youth culture, and extremely high-stakes political history, all bundled together. It's a calculated risk, that political cocktail they're mixing.
And all this provocation, this identity, it definitely fueled their early music career. Their debut album, 3CAG, back in 2018, even the title was a kind of coded reference, right?
Yeah, 3CAG. It stands for Tri Chonson Agus Skuta.
Which translates to
3 consonants and a vowel. And that was apparently known slang for MDMA, for ecstasy.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, even the album title had that layer. And the album itself, it made waves pretty much immediately. Looking back, reviewers called it self-aware and swaggering. This really compelling collection of, rowdy hip-hop tracks mixing Irish and English.
And documenting that post-Troubles reality.
Yeah, exactly. That raw, everyday reality for young people in Belfast, a mix of boredom, poverty, partying, defiance.
And then comes the film. Their shift into cinema really catapulted them onto a global stage, way beyond just the music scene. The 2024 biographical film, also called Kneecap, that was a huge moment.
It was absolutely groundbreaking. First off, it was the very first Irish-language film ever to premiere at the Sundance Film Festival.
Incredible platform.
Huge international prestige, straight away. The film got rave reviews, won awards, and then the big one. The Irish Film and Television Academy selected it as Ireland's official submission for Best International Feature Film at the 97th Academy Awards.
And they even got shortlisted for Best Original Song, too, didn't they?
They did. So you've got this band named after a paramilitary punishment tactic, one member's name referencing a prescribed organization. And they are simultaneously the face of Ireland's artistic representation at the world's biggest film awards. That tension, that contradiction, it's just incredible.
It really is the ultimate paradox, isn't it?
It shows their art is powerful enough, maybe, to cut through the controversy, or perhaps the institutions celebrating them are choosing to overlook or maybe sanitize the really extreme political baggage that comes with the Kneecap brand.
It suggests their challenge to the status quo is just so artistically compelling that even the establishment itself can't entirely ignore it.
So, okay, we've established this brand, founded in really provocative history. Now we need to see how that actually translated into, real-world conflicts with institutions.
Right, because the battle started almost straight away, didn't they? And interestingly, they were initially focused more on the struggle for Irish language rights, not just the hardline Republican stuff.
Exactly. This takes us right back to their very first single, Cearta.
Which is the Irish word for rights.
Yep. And this song really was the catalyst for that initial institutional pushback they faced. And the inspiration, it came directly from Mowgli Bap's own experience, a real-life incident.
What actually happened there? What was the story?
Okay, so the day before a big march demanding an Irish language act in Belfast, Mowgli Bap apparently went out and spray-painted the word Cearta rights on a bus stop.
Okay. Bit of guerrilla activism.
He managed to get away, but his friend got arrested. And the crucial part is, his friend refused to speak anything but Irish at the police station, insisted on it, and ended up spending the night in custody because of it. So the song, Cearta, it's a direct reaction to that perceived lack of official respect, that lack of accommodation for the Irish language by the authorities.
So the song itself
Yeah.
is fundamentally a fight for language rights.
Yeah.
But the immediate institutional reaction wasn't really political, was it? It was more moralistic.
Precisely. Late 2017, the single gets banned by Arte Radio na Gaelge,
Which is the main Irish language radio station.
the primary one, yeah. And the official reason given for the ban, drug references and cursing?
Right.
It just perfectly highlights this cultural gap. You've got the official guardians of the Irish language, who tend to be, quite conservative, quite traditional, and they were basically horrified by this raw, uncensored, hardcore hip-hop style that Kneecap was using to actually champion the language they were supposed to protect.
So kneecaps were trying to be revolutionaries for the language, and the cultural gatekeepers were essentially saying, clean up your act first.
Pretty much wash your mouth out before you speak Irish here.
Yeah.
And how did the band respond?
They defended it, presumably.
Oh, yeah. Immediately invoked artistic license. They said the track was purely a satirical take. They called it a caricature of life for young people, particularly in West Belfast.
The classic defense, we're just documenting reality, not endorsing it.
Exactly. It's the political artist's shield, used time and time again.
Now, despite this constant pushing of boundaries, this confrontational style, the band did show they weren't just one-trick ponies, right? The 2021 single, Ma'am, that seemed to reveal a totally different side.
It really did. Ma'am was this incredibly sincere, heartfelt tribute to their mothers. Critics immediately picked up on it, noting it as this massive shift in tone, something genuinely sentimental, something, quote, real.
Yeah.
Mochara actually talked about needing to show that versatility. He used this great phrase, like, we can roundhouse you off the stairs, but we can also give you a hug afterward.
Huh?
It felt like a deliberate effort to add some emotional depth, to move beyond the relentless, sometimes almost cartoonish bravado that really defined their early stuff.
And wasn't there a really profound personal tragedy behind that track, too? Which kind of underscored its sincerity.
Yes, absolutely. They revealed later that Mowgli Bop's mother had actually died by suicide shortly before the song came out.
Oh, wow.
That personal suffering, that grief, it immediately lifted the track way beyond just political posturing or image management. And to really cement that connection to real-world issues, they announced all the proceeds from the single would go directly to the Samaritan's charity.
Right.
Reinforcing that their focus, even when it's masked by all the noise and chaos, does actually include tackling really serious issues like addiction, poverty, and mental health in their communities.
But the explicit anti-establishment stuff, the direct actions, they were never really far away, were they? Like in 2019, they got quite a lot of political heat after videos surfaced of them chanting Brits out at a gig in Belfast.
Yeah, and the context there is absolutely key to understanding why that was so deliberately provocative.
What was the context?
That specific venue, the Empire Music Hall, had hosted the then Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, William and Kate, senior royals, literally the day before Kneecap played there.
Ah, okay, so the timing was everything.
Exactly. Chanting Brits out at that particular moment in that particular place with the sort of symbolic residue of the monarchy still lingering, it was a direct, targeted political slap in the face. To the British state, and especially to unionist politicians in the DUP, their MLA, Christopher Stalford, immediately condemned them publicly.
And the consequences of this kind of uncompromising political stance, they could be very immediate, very personal, as DJ Provahy found out.
Absolutely. DJ Prove actually had a day job. He was working as a teacher up until 2020,
Right.
but he was ultimately forced to leave his school. Management got wind of a video from one of their concerts, showing him with the phrase Brits out literally written across his backside.
Seriously.
Yeah. It's shocking, maybe even comical in a way, but it just perfectly illustrates how little separation they maintain between their performance art and their actual lives. For them, the art is the life and the fallout is real. They seem willing to put their personal security, their livelihoods on the line for their political expression.
Okay, so it's undeniable they're fiercely political. But we need to dig into the complexity of their republicanism because it's not maybe as straightforward as it first looks. They proudly call themselves Republican hoods. They call their fans Fenians.
Yeah, terms loaded with sectarian and nationalist history.
Absolutely. They
Wow.
advocate for a united Ireland. They oppose British rule. That seems clear.
That's the core position, definitely. But the nuance, the bit that often gets lost when people just read the headlines, is their really strong commitment to being anti-sectarian.
Okay.
Their political project, when you listen to what they actually say, seems fundamentally rooted in class. They are actively trying to push for working-class solidarity across those traditional Catholic nationalist and Protestant unionist divides.
Wait a second. If they're calling themselves Fenians and pushing for a united Ireland, how can they simultaneously claim to be anti-sectarian? Isn't that the inherent contradiction that critics would jump on?
And that's exactly where Moglaybap's comments about shared hardship become so important. He basically argues that the sectarian division itself is a political tool, right? Designed to distract people from the economic reality on the ground.
How so?
He pointed out that communities on the Catholic Falls Road and the Protestant Shankill Road, these iconic, divided areas of Belfast, they suffer from the exact same systemic problems. Crippling poverty, reliance on food banks, devastatingly high rates of suicide. He literally said the peace wall doesn't stop these things going from one community to another.
So their argument is that the political class prefers the working class to be focused on the green and orange flags, fighting each other, rather than uniting against the shared source of their misery.
Precisely. They're trying to reframe the whole conflict, move it away from being just about historical tribal identities and turn it into a modern critique of economic inequality.
And that's a message that resonates much more easily with a global audience, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Machara backed this up too, emphasizing this idea of radical inclusivity. He said something like, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, just because we rap in Irish and might not align with your political views, we can be friends with people that we don't align with politically. Their revolution, it seems, is aimed at class liberation first, whatever your traditional background.
And interestingly, they also show this quite strategic, almost pragmatic side when they talk about the biggest political hurdle to actually achieving a united Ireland.
Yeah, DJ Prokaravi was surprisingly clear-headed about this. He basically said the number one obstacle is making sure that unionists, the community that wants to remain part of the UK, feel safe and accommodated in any potential new united state.
He didn't just leave it at rhetoric, though, did he?
No, he actually suggested a concrete policy idea. Unionists should have the option of holding dual citizenship, British and Irish, which shows a level of strategic political thinking about reconciliation that kind of contrasts sharply with their loud, aggressive stage persona.
Let's go back to that stage persona. How do they square this serious political thinking, this class analysis, with the image of, constant partying, drinking, drug references? Moglaywap called their politics very tongue-in-cheek.
Right. They describe themselves as political with small p's. And the idea behind all the hedonism, the partying, the explicit mentions of Class A drugs seems to be, in their words, to take the seriousness and the sting out of traditional historical republicanism.
How does that work?
Well, they seem to recognize that the heavy, often grim burden of revolutionary politics can be alienating, especially to younger generations. So by blending it with this contemporary hood culture, with partying and humor, they make these really sensitive historical topics somehow more palatable, more accessible. It's almost like they're desensitizing the loaded political language of division through humor and chaos.
But despite this small political approach, their hostility towards authority, particularly the police, seems absolute and very explicitly rooted in history.
Correct. They consistently show hostility towards the police, and significantly, they often still refer to them as the RUC, the Royal Ulster Constabulary.
Which was the police force during the Troubles, widely seen as sectarian by the nationalist community, and it was officially disbanded and replaced back in 2001.
Exactly. The current force is the Police Service of Northern Ireland, the PSNI. Kneecap themselves were just kids when the RUC was replaced. So why keep using the old, outdated name?
It's a signal, isn't it? A complete rejection of the legitimacy of the rebranded institution. It's like saying you changed the uniform and the name, but underneath you're still the same historical force we oppose.
That's precisely the message.
Yeah.
And they visualize this rejection quite dramatically in their art. Remember in 2022, they commissioned that controversial mural in West Belfast.
The one with the burning police vehicle.
That's the one, a burning PSNI Land Rover. It's about as unambiguous a visual statement as you can get, designed purely to provoke and maintain the adversarial stance against the state's security forces.
And this kind of imagery, this anti-authority stance, it isn't just confined to Northern Ireland, is it? They seem keen to connect their local struggle to a wider, global anti-imperialist narrative, like that incident with the King George V statue head in Melbourne.
Yeah, that was in 2025, wasn't it? A perfect example of them globalizing their message. During a gig in Melbourne, Australia, the severed head of a statue of King George V somehow appeared on stage with them.
A head that had been, cut off by protesters?
Apparently so. Removed by protesters during the King's birthday celebrations back in 2024. Kneecap immediately saw the symbolism and ran with it. They posted the picture on Instagram with the caption, "Remember, every colony can fall."
Wow.
It instantly transforms their specific Northern Irish identity struggle into this universal rallying cry for anti-colonial resistance everywhere. Very effective framing.
Okay, so the moment Kneecap really started getting that international visibility, it seems like the institutional scrutiny just ramped up massively. The last couple of years, 2024, 2025, I mean, the timeline reads like a political thriller script.
It really does.
Let's start with that UK government grant block.
Early 2024.
Right. This was such a clear-cut case of, well, attempted political censorship that quickly snowballed into this high-profile legal fight. February 2024, Kneecap gets awarded a grant about £14,250 from the Music Export Growth Scheme.
Which is designed to help UK acts promote themselves overseas.
Exactly, government-backed funding. But almost immediately, the money gets blocked by the Department for Business and Trade. And who specifically was behind that block? And what was the justification given?
It came directly from the business secretary at the time, Kemi Badenoch. And her public statement was pretty unambiguous. She said the grant shouldn't go to people who oppose the United Kingdom itself.
Wow. So an explicit ideological block.
Right.
Punishing them for their politics, basically, their pro-United Ireland stance.
Absolutely. But Kneecap being Kneecap, they weren't just going to take that lying down, were they?
No, they fought back hard.
They did. They launched a discrimination case against the UK government. And they won. November 2024, they got the full grant amount awarded back to them.
But what they did next was maybe even more significant, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. The aftermath was crucial. To really hammer home their point about being class-focused and anti-sectarian, they publicly announced they were splitting the £14,250. Half went to a youth organization working mainly with the Protestant community in Northern Ireland, and the other half to one working mainly with the Catholic community.
Turning a government attempt to censor them into a massive PR win, reinforcing their core message.
Exactly. Masterful political jujitsu, really.
Now, beyond those UK-specific battles, their outspoken solidarity with Palestine really put them in the international firing line, didn't it? Particularly in the U.S.
Yeah, their support for Palestinian self-determination seems absolutely central to their global identity now. They're vocal advocates for boycotting Israel. They fly Palestinian flags constantly at their gigs.
And they have actual tangible connections too, right? Fundraising.
Yeah, they helped raise funds for a volunteer-run gym in the Aida refugee camp near Bethlehem. For them, it seems to be a direct continuation of their own community's historical anti-colonial struggle. They see parallels.
And that very public stance led directly to that incredibly explosive incident at Coachella in April 2025. That really put them on news desks everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. During their set at Coachella, one of the biggest music festivals in the world, they used the massive stage screens for some extremely forceful political messages.
What did they say?
Things like, Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinian people. Then, it is being enabled by the U.S. And finally, the really blunt one, fuck Israel, free Palestine.
Wow, on that stage.
On that stage. Broadcast live, it triggered this immediate, massive international firestorm.
The backlash must have been intense. Death threats, calls to revoke their U.S. visas, allegations of hate speech.
It was severe, but their response was pure Kneecap. Totally unwavering, analytical, defiant. They put out a statement immediately clarifying that condemning the actions of the State of Israel was not an attack on Jewish people. They pointed out they knew massive numbers of Jewish people outraged by this genocide just as we are.
Right.
And they directly rebutted the hate speech claim by saying, basically, statements aren't aggressive, but murdering 20,000 children is, though. Then they broadened the attack, didn't they? Pointing fingers back at the UK's alleged complicity in war crimes.
Yeah, they linked it back to Irish history, saying the powerful in Britain abetted slaughter and famine in Gaza, just as they did in Ireland for centuries.
Connecting those struggles again, it's a consistent theme.
And this whole climate, this intense political scrutiny, it seemed to fuel several serious legal dramas back in the UK, starting with that investigation by counterterrorism police.
Yes. April 2025, news breaks that UK counterterrorism police are looking into the ban over some older video clips from back in November 2023. Specifically, one where a member apparently said something like, "The only good Tory is a dead Tory. Kill your local MP."
Which is obviously incredibly inflammatory language.
Hugely. Now, no charges were actually pressed regarding that specific statement, and the band did later apologize to the families of the murdered MPs Joe Cox and David Ames, claiming the footage was, quote, deliberately taken out of all context. But the very fact that counterterrorism police were investigating showed the level of state scrutiny they were under.
But the more serious legal threat came later, didn't it? The Hezbollah flag charge.
That was a genuine, serious legal jeopardy situation. May 2025, Mo Chara is formally charged under the Terrorism Act 2006. The allegation was that he displayed a flag representing Hezbollah, which is a proscribed terrorist organization in the UK, during a London concert back in November 2024.
And expressing support for a proscribed group is a serious offense under UK terror laws.
Very serious. Mo Chara's defense was that the flag was just thrown onto the stage by someone in the crowd, and he didn't actively endorse the group. But the charge itself was significant.
What happened with that case in the end? It got quite complex.
It did. The charges against Mo Chara were actually dismissed in September 2025. But crucially, it wasn't because the court decided he was innocent of the act itself.
This is a technicality.
Exactly. The court ruled the legal proceedings were instituted unlawfully. Basically, a procedural error in how the case was brought forward by the prosecution. However, the Crown Prosecution Service immediately said they intended to appeal that decision. So the legal threat, the uncertainty, it continues to hang over him.
And just before that ruling, we had the big Glastonbury Festival showdown in June 2025. That really seemed to crystallize the whole political divide around them in the UK at the time.
Yeah, the timing was electric. The Labour leader, Keir Starmer, was gearing up for a likely general election, trying to project stability, and he publicly stated that Kneecap's scheduled performance at Glastonbury was not appropriate.
A comment clearly aimed at reassuring more conservative or centrist voters, presumably.
You'd imagine so, but it just poured fuel on the fire.
And the band's reaction was, well, predictable.
Fierce and immediate. They shot back online saying something like, "You know what's not appropriate, Keir? Arming a fucking genocide."
Wow. Directly linking his comment to UK arms sales potentially used in Gaza.
Exactly. It put Starmer in a really awkward spot, forcing him to kind of address the Palestine issue indirectly while trying to maintain his condemnation of the band. Despite all that pressure, their Glastonbury set went ahead and drew an absolutely massive, full-capacity crowd.
And Mo Chara used the platform, didn't he? Referencing his legal troubles.
Oh, yeah. He shouted out to the crowd, "I'm a free man," which, given the pending Hezbollah case appeal, was maybe jumping the gun slightly, but it sparked huge cheers and these organized chants from the audience. "Free Mo Chara!" And inevitably, "Fuck Keir Starmer."
This moment also really highlighted that gap between traditional media control and grassroots viral power, didn't it?
It really did. The BBC, as the main institutional broadcaster, they actually delayed the live stream of Kneecap's set. They wanted time for editorial review, clearly nervous about airing potentially inflammatory political statements live.
But that created a vacuum.
Which was instantly filled. An independent Welsh activist just decided to live stream the entire set on TikTok, and it went massively viral, apparently racking up over 1.8 million likes. It showed how the audience just bypassed the traditional gatekeepers using social media.
Did anything come of the performance legally?
Police confirmed they assessed the footage afterwards, but determined no further action was needed. So, despite the uproar, no laws were deemed broken on stage that day.
And finally, all this constant friction, all these controversies, they eventually led to actual bans from entire countries entering the picture, showing their political noise has real, tangible international consequences.
Yeah, the two big examples came in the summer and autumn of 2025. First, July 2025, they were banned from entering Hungary for 3 years. This came just before they were due to play the big Sziget festival there.
And the reason given by the Hungarian government.
Their spokesperson explicitly mentioned alleged anti-Semitic hate speech and concerns about them being a national security threat. Kneecap's response was to call it a political distraction, basically accusing the Hungarian government of trying to silence criticism over Gaza.
And then the really strange, almost confusing situation involving Canada emerged.
Yeah, that was bizarre. September 2025, a Canadian MP named Vince Gasparo publicly announces that Kneecap are banned from entering Canada, again citing alleged support for designated terrorist group.
But was it an official ban?
That's the weird part. Subsequent reporting by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the CBC, found that no official government department, no relevant minister, nobody in authority could actually confirm such a ban existed.
So the MP might have just announced it without it being official policy.
It certainly looked that way. It led to opposition parties demanding clarity, asking if the MP had basically misled the public. It just shows how Kneecap's name alone has become potent enough to be weaponized in political arguments, officially sanctioned or not, on different continents.
Okay, so after tracing this relentless cycle of controversy, defiance, legal battles, we have to ask, How is the actual music, the message itself, being received by critics? Are they seen as genuinely dangerous political artists, or are they just incredibly skilled at generating outrage? Performative.
Well, the critical reception is fascinating because it's definitely polarized. But a lot of the praise really focuses on the idea that there's an intellectual strategy behind all the provocation.
Like who? What are they saying?
Emer MacLeisite, writing in the Irish Times, described their work as having an intelligent approach to social commentary and republicanism, more satire than sectarian, and crucially, she emphasized that they punch up, not down.
Which ties back into that class solidarity argument we discussed. They're targeting the powerful, not other communities.
Exactly. It aligns perfectly with their stated aim of liberating the working class as a whole.
And the music itself,
Yeah.
the actual sound and performance, that seems to get pretty universal praise, regardless of where people stand on the politics.
Oh, absolutely. Critics across the board seem to agree they are a phenomenal live act and musically compelling. Miranda Sawyer called them a brilliant live act, highlighting their wit and eloquence.
And the sound.
Praised for its feral, furious flows, its energy. One review mentioned a bassy intensity that has a hint of the prodigy about it, which gives you an idea of the power. And sometimes the simplest audience take sums it up best, right? Like that quote, "I do not understand a word they're saying, but I do understand that this is an absolute banger." That raw energy, that ability to connect beyond language barriers, that's clearly a huge part of their appeal.
But the very success of a band that basically trades in rebellion, that inevitably invites the most persistent criticism, doesn't it? The charge of performative radicalism, the idea that maybe their rebellion is just an act, manufactured for consumption by the very establishment they claim to oppose.
This is where the debate gets really sharp. You have commentators like the journalist Malachi O'Doherty suggesting they have worked diligently at presenting themselves as worthless layabouts, implying there's a calculated dishonesty and engineered persona.
He questioned whether their success actually means that hood culture and provisional IRA culture are both now parodied rather than preserved with any integrity, basically asking if they're trivializing serious history for entertainment.
Exactly, and this critique really drills down into the idea that maybe the rebellion is only acceptable, only marketable because it's ultimately safe, sanitized. Brendan O'Neill, writing in the conservative online magazine Spiked, really went for this angle. He called them the cultural class LARPing as chavs.
LARPing, like live-action role-playing.
Yeah. His argument is that their politics are essentially designed to appeal to and entertain a middle-class liberal audience. People who enjoy the thrill, the frisson of rebellion, but without any actual personal risk.
So a sanitized, bourgeois-friendly version of resistance.
That was his phrase. He argued it ultimately flatters the establishment by providing this kind of safe pressure valve for discontent rather than posing any genuine systemic challenge. Tom Jones in The Critic echoed this, suggesting they offer an attractive combination of an edgy appearance without genuine transgression.
But hang on. If their radicalism is truly just performative and sanitized, why on earth are they facing actual counterterrorism investigations? Why are governments blocking their funding? Why are countries trying to ban them? Doesn't that real-world institutional backlash kind of disprove the claim that they're just a safe rebellion?
And that is the absolute core contradiction that the source material throws up, isn't it? You have to weigh that critique. Is it just an act against the very concrete, very serious consequences they face?
And how did other artists react? People who might understand the pressures of political art.
Well, significantly, the artistic community largely rallied around them. Over 40 artists signed statements defending their freedom of expression. And they often pointed precisely to the severity of the official response as proof of Kneecap's impact. Massive Attack, for instance, put out a really powerful statement.
What was Massive Attack's take?
They directly called out politicians and parts of the media for, in their words, manufacturing outrage over a young punk band, while conveniently ignoring the far more serious issue the band was actually protesting, namely a genocide happening in real time.
Framing Kneecap not as the problem, but as necessary truth tellers.
Exactly. Positioning them as vital agitators, exposing the hypocrisy of a system that gets worked up about an MP's comments but stays silent on mass suffering elsewhere. For Massive Attack, the sheer intensity of the institutional reaction was proof positive that Kneecap's message was hitting a raw nerve, regardless of whether some critics thought their image was authentic or not. #outro. So, where does all this leave us? What does it mean for you, the listener? Kneecap, they clearly exist at this remarkable intersection. They've achieved undeniable mainstream commercial success. We're talking charting albums, BAFTA wins, that Oscar shortlist, while at the very same time functioning as this incredibly persistent, high-profile lightning rod for international political crises, funding battles, and these really complex ongoing legal dramas.
I think the key takeaway nugget here is how successfully they've managed to weaponize everything. The Irish language, their political defiance, their focus on working-class issues into this globally recognized and globally controversial brand. They are the absolute definition of an artist generating sustained, self-propelling heat.
Yeah. Using this incredibly explicit, provocative imagery to hammer home what is actually quite a nuanced, class-focused message, a message that seems almost designed to demand an institutional reaction.
And they certainly get one.
They definitely get one. Which forces us, I think, to confront that core question: is their radicalism ultimately just designed to entertain the very establishment their actions seem to oppose? Or does the sheer volume of backlash from governments, from legal systems, from media outrage, does that serve as the ultimate proof that their message is genuinely reaching and genuinely challenging the systems of power they target?
And that really brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. We've seen exactly how Kneecap have used their platform, their art, to provoke these incredibly intense, very specific responses from governments all over the world. Responses that have led to real-world consequences. Arrests, funding being blocked, global media storms, attempted travel bans. Does this level of institutional and governmental pushback, the refusal of grants based on ideology, the attempts to ban them from multiple countries, the counterterrorism charges, even if they were technically dismissed, does all that serve as the ultimate undeniable confirmation that their music, their message, is actually landing, that it is effectively challenging the systems they rail against?
Both. Is the controversy itself simply the most potent, most marketable product they actually possess? Is the outrage the point?
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Kneecap.
We'll catch you on the next one.